I watched through my open garage as Dad handed the buyer the keys to my car. My Honda Civic. The one I'd saved for 3 years to buy. The one with my parking permit still stuck to the windshield. "This is for the family," Dad said, like those 4 words made everything okay. The buyer counted out cash. $50 bills that Dad folded and shoved into his jacket pocket. He didn't look at me once. Not when the man asked about the mileage. Not when they shook hands. Not when my car, backed out of our driveway. "Dad, what are you doing?" I finally screamed. He turned and smiled. Not a sorry smile. A smile like he'd just solved a big problem. Like he was proud of himself. "Dominic needs this more than you do," he said. "You can take the bus." Dominic. My younger brother. The one who could never do anything wrong. Dad walked past me into the house, whistling a tune I recognized from his favorite old movie. The buyer drove away in my car, and I just stood there. My legs wouldn't move. My brain couldn't understand what had just happened. Later that afternoon, I saw something fall from Dad's jacket when he hung it up. A glossy wedding photo. Dominic and his new wife Sarah on a beach, both grinning like they'd won the lottery. Behind the photo was a brochure with big blue letters, "Honeymoon Packages." My stomach dropped. He sold my car to pay for Dominic's honeymoon. I picked up the brochure after Dad left the room. Turks and Caicos. 7-day all-inclusive resort. Sunset cruises and couples massages. My hands started shaking. That night, sleep didn't come. I kept seeing Dad's face. That smile. Like stealing from me was just another Tuesday. At 2 in the morning, I gave up and went downstairs. Dad's tablet was charging on the kitchen counter. He never put a password on it. Said he had nothing to hide. I opened his email app. It took 10 minutes of scrolling before I found it. A receipt from Paradise Getaways Travel. The date was 3 days ago. The amount made my chest tight. $7,500. $7,500. My car was worth maybe $8,000. He'd sold everything I owned and given it to Dominic. I took a screenshot. My hands shook so badly I had to try 3 times before I got it right. There was another email below the receipt. From Dominic. "Thanks, Dad. Sarah is so excited. You're the best father ever. Not will pay you back. Not, this is too much. Just thanks and a smiley face." I wanted to scream. Wanted to throw the tablet against the wall and watch it shatter. But I just stood there in the dark kitchen, staring at proof that my father had stolen from me. I texted Dominic. One simple question. "Did you know Dad sold my car to pay for your honeymoon?" 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, a photo came through. Dominic on a beach chair, sunscreen on his nose, a bright blue drink in his hand. The caption said, "Living the dream, bro." No answer to my question. No apology. Just a picture of him enjoying the vacation I'd paid for. At breakfast the next morning, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Why did you let him do this?" I asked Mom. She stood at the stove making scrambled eggs. Her back was to me. Dad had already left for work. Dominic was probably still sleeping off his beach vacation. Let who do what? Mom's voice was quiet. Too quiet. "Dad sold my car. To pay for Dominic's honeymoon." "My car, Mom." The spatula stopped moving. Just for a second. Then she kept stirring the eggs in slow circles. "It's their money," she finally said. "Their money?" My voice cracked. "That was MY car. I paid for it with MY money from MY job. Your father makes the financial decisions in this house." Mom's voice was flat. Like she'd said this same sentence 100 times before. I pushed my chair back. The legs made a horrible scraping sound against the floor. "That money was mine." "Watch your tone," Mom said, still not looking at me. I stood there feeling small. Feeling invisible. Like nothing I said would ever matter because I wasn't the favorite son. From the living room, a quiet voice asked, "Did you ever read Dad's will?" I turned around fast. My cousin Jenny was sitting on the couch. She'd stayed overnight after a family dinner. I'd forgotten she was even here. "What?" I said. But Jenny just looked at me with this strange expression. Then she stood up and walked outside without saying another word. The question hung in the air like smoke. "Dad's will. Why would that matter now? After Mom left for her book club, I went straight to Dad's office. The room smelled like old coffee and leather. Everything was organized and neat. Dad liked order. The safe was behind a painting of a sailboat. I knew the combination because Dad had made me memorize it years ago. In case of emergency, he'd said. The numbers were Mom's birthday, August 14th, 71. I turned the dial carefully. Left, right, left again. The safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of papers. Insurance documents in blue folders. The house deed in a plastic sleeve. Birth certificates held together with a paperclip. And at the very bottom, a thick envelope with "Last Will and Testament" written across the front. My hands felt cold as I pulled it out. I sat on the floor and started reading. Most of it was boring legal words that didn't make much sense. The house went to Mom. His retirement money got split between Dominic and me. His tools went to Dominic because Dominic showed interest in working with his hands. I almost stopped reading. But then I saw my name in a different paragraph. To my son Marcus, I leave one item of significant personal value, the golden compass that belonged to my father and his father before him. The golden compass. I didn't remember ever seeing a golden compass. Nothing like that in our house. Nothing Dad had ever shown me. But someone had written in the margin. Pencil marks, shaky handwriting, kept in attic, under the chest. The handwriting looked old. Faded. Maybe Grandpa's writing from before he died 5 years ago. I read the line again. Significant personal value. That meant it was important. That meant Dad had wanted me to have it specifically. I took a photo of the page with my phone and put the will back in the safe. The attic ladder creaked when I pulled it down. Dust fell on my head and made me sneeze. Nobody had been up here in forever. The air was hot and smelled like old cardboard. Boxes were everywhere with Mom's handwriting on the sides. Christmas lights. Baby clothes. Old books. In the far back corner, I found it. A big wooden chest with metal corners. The kind you see in pirate movies. A moth-eaten blanket covered the top. I pulled the blanket off and lifted the lid. Inside were photo albums from when Grandpa was young. Some old military uniforms with buttons that looked like real gold. A fishing tackle box with rusty hooks. Under everything else, wrapped in a piece of red cloth, I found it. The compass was smaller than I thought it would be. Made of brass, about the size of my palm. The glass face was scratched but not broken. On the back, someone had carved initials. Jeech. Those were Grandpa's initials. James Harrison. Dad used to tell stories about this compass when I was little. He said Grandpa carried it everywhere during the war. Said it was priceless. But I thought he meant priceless like memories. Not priceless like money. I turned it over in my hands. It felt heavy. Solid. Under where the compass had been lying, I found a piece of paper. Old and yellow. A receipt. The date was from 40 years ago. The item description said, Antique Maritime Compass, Brass, circa 1890. At the bottom, someone had circled a line and written, Priceless, in blue ink. But on the back was a stamp. Official looking with an address. Marlowe Auction House, Portland, Oregon. My heart started beating faster. An auction house. That meant this wasn't just some old family treasure. This was something people bought and sold for real money. I spent the next hour on my laptop searching. Marlowe Auction House Portland brought up a fancy website. Pictures of paintings and jewelry. Old furniture that looked like it belonged in museums. I found a phone number under Contact Us. I stared at it for 5 whole minutes before I finally called. Marlowe Auction House. This is Christine speaking. My throat felt dry. Hi. I have a question about something. A compass. It has a receipt from your auction house from a long time ago. Oh, how interesting. Can you describe it for me? I told her about the brass. The initials. The date on the receipt. Christine was quiet for a second. Can you hold, please? Classical music played. Some violin piece that made me more nervous. Then Christine came back, but her voice sounded different. More serious. Sir, items like that from our 1890s maritime collection can be quite valuable. Especially with provenance. Do you have documentation? I have the original receipt. And it's in my grandfather's will. Oh. A long pause. Then you're the legal owner? Yes. Would you be interested in a valuation? We'd need to see it in person, but based on what you're describing, this piece might have sold for a significant amount originally. My heart pounded. How significant? Without examining it, I can't say exactly. But maritime compasses from that era with documented history can range from $5,000 to $50,000. Sometimes more. The room started spinning. $50,000. Are you still there? Christine asked. Yeah. I'm here. Would you like to schedule an appointment to bring it in? I looked at the compass sitting on my desk. The afternoon sun made the brass glow. Let me think about it, I said. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, just staring at something Dad thought was worthless. Something that could be worth more than my car and Dominic's honeymoon combined. That night at dinner, my phone buzzed. A text from Dominic. Can we talk? I owe you an explanation. I watched the message sit there on my screen. Then I watched it disappear. Dominic had deleted it. A second later, another message. Never mind. I put my phone face down on the table and looked at Dad. He was cutting his pot roast, talking to Mom about refinancing the house. Acting like everything was perfectly normal. Dad, I said. He looked up. Yeah, son. Did you know Grandpa left me his compass in the will? Dad's knife stopped moving. Just for a second. Then he laughed. That old thing? Yeah, it's probably still in the attic somewhere collecting dust. Why do you ask? Just wondering. Your grandpa thought that compass had magic powers or something. He carried it everywhere like it was his lucky charm. Dad took another bite. Total nonsense, but it made him happy. He shrugged. You can have it if you want. Not like it's worth anything. The lies sat on the table between us like a third person at dinner. Okay, I said. Thanks. After we finished eating, Dad stopped me in the hallway. His hand landed heavy on my shoulder. About the car, he said. I know you're still upset. But family helps family. That's how it works. You understand, right? I looked at him. Really looked. The man who taught me to ride a bike. The man who helped me with my math homework. The man who said he was proud of me. The same man who just stole $7,500 from me and didn't think he'd done anything wrong. Sure, Dad, I said. I understand. His face relaxed. Good. I knew you'd come around. You're a good kid, Marcus. He patted my shoulder and walked away. I went to my room and pulled out the compass. Held it in my hands and felt its weight. Felt the anger building in my chest like a fire that needed somewhere to go. Dad thought I'd just accept this. Thought I'd roll over and forget. He was wrong. I couldn't sleep again. I lay in bed making plans in my head. By morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. Not just sell the compass. Anyone could do that. I needed to make Dad feel the way he'd made me feel. Powerless. Stolen from. At breakfast, I was calm. Dad smiled at me across the table. See? I told you you'd get over the car situation. Want help looking at bus routes? No thanks, I said. I figured it out. That's my boy. After Dad left for work, I went back to the attic. I found every photo I could with the compass in it. There were so many. Grandpa wearing it on a chain. The compass sitting on a workbench. A picture of baby me in a crib with the compass hanging above it like a mobile. This compass had been in our family for 3 generations. It was in more pictures than some of our relatives. I gathered everything and spread it across my desk. In one photo, I noticed something I'd missed before. A small card visible at the edge of the frame. Grandpa's handwriting, for when you're brave. My throat got tight. Grandpa had meant for me to have this. Not as a toy. As something important. Something that mattered. I took pictures of all the photos with my phone. Then I opened my laptop and wrote an email to Christine at Marlowe Auction House. I'd like to consign the compass for auction. I have complete provenance and family photos showing its history. When can we meet? My finger stayed over the send button for a long time. Then I pressed it. The email disappeared. No taking it back now. The compass would be sold. And Dad would find out what it felt like to lose something precious. Christine replied fast. Within an hour, my phone buzzed. Marcus, thank you for reaching out. We'd love to evaluate the compass. Can you bring it to our Portland office next Tuesday? I'm also very interested in the family history. Our auction descriptions perform much better when there's a personal story. Would you be comfortable sharing some background? A personal story. She meant the truth about Dad, about my car, about everything. I typed slowly, my hands shaking a little. My father sold my car without asking to pay for my brother's honeymoon. The compass is legally mine according to my grandfather's will. I'm selling it because I need to stand up for myself. I hit send before I could change my mind. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Christine. Marcus, I just read your email. Her voice was different. Softer. I'm so sorry about your car. But I have to tell you, this kind of authentic story is exactly what drives serious bidding interest. Collectors connect with real emotion. Would you be willing to let us include this in the auction catalog? My hands were sweating. You mean tell everyone what my dad did? Only if you're comfortable. But yes, it would make the piece significantly more valuable. Buyers love items with genuine human stories behind them. I thought about Dad's smile when he handed over my keys. Thought about Dominic's beach photo. Thought about Mom saying, "It's their money." Yes, I said. I'm comfortable with that. Excellent. I'll send our consignment papers. And Marcus? I think this compass is going to do very well. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet. This was really happening. The compass would be sold publicly. The story would be out there. Dad would know. My phone buzzed again. Dominic calling. I let it go to voicemail. Whatever he wanted to say, I wasn't ready to hear it yet. The consignment papers came by email the next morning. 10 pages of legal language about fees and reserves and auction dates. At the bottom, Christine had added a note. I showed your compass photos to our senior appraiser. He believes this could sell for $25,000 to $40,000 based on condition and provenance. Possibly more with the right narrative. $40,000. 5 times what my car was worth. 5 times what Dad gave to Dominic. I signed everything and sent it back. Then I took a bus to FedEx, since I didn't have a car anymore, and shipped the compass to Portland with insurance and tracking. The woman at the counter asked what was in the package. Something worth more than the person who gave it to me ever realized, I said. She looked confused but scanned the label. That night, I did something I'd been thinking about. I created a fake social media account and wrote a post. Not on my real account. Just a throwaway. My dad sold my car to pay for my brother's honeymoon without asking. So I'm selling something he thinks is worthless but isn't. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself even when it hurts. I didn't post it yet. Just saved it as a draft. But writing the words felt powerful. Like taking control back. My phone rang. Dominic again. This time I answered. What? My voice came out harder than I meant it to. Marcus, please. Let me explain. Dominic sounded stressed. I didn't know about the car until yesterday. I swear. Dad told me he'd saved the money from working overtime. And you believed him? Silence. Then, I should have asked more questions. You're right. I'm sorry. You're on your honeymoon right now, Dominic. On a beach. Drinking drinks with little umbrellas. Having fun with money that was mine. We're coming home tomorrow. I want to fix this somehow. How? You going to give me back $7,500? More silence. We both knew he couldn't. Dominic worked part-time at a bookstore. He had no savings. I'll figure something out, he said quietly. I hung up without saying goodbye. Promises didn't mean anything. Not anymore. The next week, Christine called with news. The compass arrived safely. Marcus, our appraiser, is very excited. This is a genuinely rare piece. We'd like to feature it prominently in our September Maritime Collection auction. Okay. There's one more thing. For the catalog, we typically include a photograph. Not just of the item. Of the consignor. Holding the compass. It helps buyers connect emotionally with the piece. My stomach twisted. A photo meant this got more real. Meant people would see my face attached to this whole situation. Do I have to? It would significantly increase bidding interest. But the choice is yours. I thought about Dad. About his smiling face when he sold my car. Okay, I said. I'll do it. 2 days later, a photographer came to our house. He was young with expensive cameras and a friendly smile. I heard about your situation, he said while setting up lights. That's rough. My dad pulled something similar when I was in college. Used my college fund to bail out my uncle's business. What did you do? Nothing. I was too scared to say anything. He adjusted a light. But I wish I'd stood up for myself like you're doing now. The photo shoot took 20 minutes. Me holding the compass. Me looking at it. Me with the compass next to family photos on our mantle. These are great, the photographer said, showing me the screen. You look determined. Buyers are going to respond to this. After he left, I felt strange. Light and heavy at the same time. Like I'd jumped off a cliff but hadn't hit the ground yet. That night, Christine emailed the catalog description. Lot 47, brass maritime compass, circa 1890. Provenance, 3 generations of the Harrison family. Consigned by Marcus Harrison after his father sold his car without permission to fund a family member's vacation. This compass represents not just maritime history, but the courage to demand respect. I read it 5 times. Then I approved it. The auction was scheduled for 3 weeks from now. The catalog went live on Marlowe's website Monday morning. By noon, I'd gotten my first message. A collector from California asking for detailed photos of the compass's internal mechanism. Then another message came. And another. By evening, 7 different people had contacted me. All interested. All asking questions. One message was different. No name attached. Just an email, collector1892@privatemail.com. Very interested in your compass. Willing to offer $35,000 for immediate private sale. No auction, no publicity. Clean and simple. Please advise. $35,000. Right now. No waiting. No uncertainty. Enough to buy a new car and have money left over for college. I stared at the message for an hour. This was what I wanted, right? Money to replace what Dad took. Justice. Fair payment. But something felt wrong. Taking the private offer meant the story died. Nobody would know what Dad had done. I typed back, "What's the catch?" The response was fast. No catch. I prefer private transactions. But I'll need confirmation that the family narrative remains confidential. I'll send an NDA for signature. There was. They wanted me quiet. Wanted me to take the money and disappear. Wanted the truth buried. My finger hovered over reply. $35,000 was more money than I'd ever seen. More than enough to solve all my problems. But it wasn't about the money anymore. Not really. I deleted the message and blocked the sender. The auction would happen. The story would be public. Dad would face consequences. That night, someone knocked on my bedroom door. He stood in the hallway looking uncomfortable. For the first time in weeks, he didn't look confident. He looked nervous. "Can we talk?" he asked. We sat at the kitchen table. Just us. Mom had gone to bed early. Dominic was still on his honeymoon for one more day. Dad folded his hands on the table. They were shaking a little. "I got a call today," he said. "From my sister, Aunt Linda." I waited. She saw something online. An auction listing. A compass that looked like my father's compass. With family photos. Dad's voice was tight. "She asked why you were selling it." My heart pounded, but I kept my face blank. "It's mine. Grandpa left it to me in his will." "I know that. But Marcus, this is a family heirloom. You can't just sell it to strangers for money." "You sold my car to strangers for money." Dad's face turned red. "That's completely different. The car was mine. The car was mine. I paid for it. I owned it. And you took it." "I borrowed against it for family purposes." "For your brother." "You didn't borrow anything, Dad. You stole it. You sold my property and gave the money to Dominic without asking me once." Dad stood up fast. His chair scraped loud against the floor. "I'm your father. I make the financial decisions for this family. And I'm telling you right now to cancel that auction." No. The word hung in the air between us. Small but heavy. Dad's face went from red to purple. If you go through with this, if you embarrass this family publicly, you'll regret it. I'll sue you to get that compass back. Go ahead and try. My voice stayed steady even though my hands shook under the table. The will is legal. The auction house verified it. You have no claim. You ungrateful little... Dad stopped himself. Took a breath. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Softer. Marcus. Please. Don't do this. We can work something out. I'll find a way to get you another car. Not right away, but eventually. Just cancel the auction. No. Dad stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe he'd only ever seen the version of me that did what he wanted. He left without another word. I heard his bedroom door slam upstairs. I sat alone in the dark kitchen, shaking all over. I just told my father no. Really no. For maybe the first time ever. It felt terrible and amazing at the same time. The next 2 weeks moved fast and slow. Every day brought more messages from collectors. More questions about the compass. The auction listing had been viewed over 3,000 times. Aunt Linda called 4 times. I didn't answer. Uncle Bob sent an angry email about destroying family bonds. I deleted it. But Mom was the worst. She cornered me in the kitchen one morning. Her eyes were red from crying. Please, she said. Just cancel the auction. Your father is having panic attacks. This is killing him. He sold my car. That didn't kill him. That was different. How? Explain to me exactly how it's different. She couldn't. She just shook her head and walked away. Dominic came home from his honeymoon on Tuesday. He showed up at my door that evening with Sarah. They both looked tired and sunburnt. We need to talk, Dominic said. We sat in my room. Sarah stayed quiet, her hands folded in her lap. I didn't know, Dominic said. About the car. Dad told me he'd been saving up from side jobs. I thought. He stopped and rubbed his face. I should have asked more questions. Should have realized something was wrong. Yeah. You should have. I want to pay you back. Every penny. It'll take time, but I promise I will. I wanted to stay angry. Wanted to hold on to the rage that had been keeping me going. But looking at Dominic, I could see he really meant it. He looked almost as betrayed as I felt. The auction is in 1 week, I said. Dominic nodded slowly. I know. I saw the listing online. And? I think you should do it. His voice cracked a little. Dad needs to learn that his actions have consequences. And honestly, so do I. I've been letting Dad do whatever he wants for too long. Always being the favorite. Always getting special treatment. He looked at me with wet eyes. I'm sorry, Marcus. For all of it. After they left, I felt different. Still angry at Dad. But less angry at Dominic. Maybe that was growth. Maybe that was healing. 3 days before the auction, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Cody Matthews. I'm a debt collector working with your father. We need to discuss his outstanding loan immediately. Call me. My stomach dropped. Loan? What loan? I showed the message to Jenny. She'd been helping me stay sane through everything. She read it twice. Marcus, this smells bad. Really bad. Did your dad mention any loans? No. Nothing. You need to ask him. Tonight. I found Dad in his office that evening. He looked terrible. Exhausted. Older than I'd ever seen him. Dad, who's Cody Matthews? All the color drained from his face. Where did you hear that name? He texted me. Said something about an outstanding loan. Dad closed his eyes and didn't speak for a long time. Then, I made a terrible mistake. The story came out slowly, like pulling teeth. Dad had taken a loan from a private lender 6 months ago. Not a bank. A man named Cody Matthews who loaned money to people banks wouldn't trust. The interest rate was insane. 20%. Why? I asked. Your mother wanted new kitchen cabinets. I wanted to surprise her for our anniversary. But business was slow. The bank wouldn't approve me. Dad's voice was hollow. I thought I could pay it back quickly. But the interest kept adding up. How much do you owe? $8,000 now. And Cody's not a patient man. 8,000. Almost exactly what my car sold for. You sold my car to pay off a loan shark? It wasn't supposed to be your car. I was going to sell my truck. But then Dominic called saying he needed money for the honeymoon, and I thought. Dad looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time in weeks. I thought I could fix everything at once. Pay Cody. Help Dominic. And you'd understand eventually because you're a good kid who cares about family. But the honeymoon money. The honeymoon was real. Dominic needed $7,500. But I told him I'd saved it when really I used your car money. Then I used the leftover $500 for a payment to Cody. Dad's hands shook. I was going to tell you. I just needed more time. I felt sick. Does Mom know? No. And Cody threatened to tell her if I don't pay the balance by month's end. He's threatening to take the boat. Our family boat. The one Dad and Grandpa had restored together years ago. That's in 2 weeks, I said. I know. We sat in heavy silence. Finally, I asked the question I was afraid to know the answer to. How much is the compass worth? Dad's voice came out as barely a whisper. Enough to solve everything. Enough to pay Cody and still have money left over. Now I understood. The compass wasn't just a family heirloom to Dad. It was his only way out. I couldn't sleep that night. Dad's confession played over and over in my head. He hadn't just stolen from me for Dominic's honeymoon. He'd stolen from me to pay a loan shark. And now that loan shark was threatening our family. Part of me felt bad for Dad. He'd made stupid choices, but he'd been trying to help people. Dominic himself. But a bigger part stayed angry. Because Dad had chances to ask for help. Chances to tell the truth. Instead, he'd chosen to steal from me and lie about everything. At breakfast, Mom was quiet until she suddenly spoke. Marcus, she said. Your father told me about the loan last night. I looked at Dad. He was staring at his coffee like it held answers. He told you everything. The loan. Why he really sold it. Mom's voice was cold. I'm not angry at you. I'm furious at him. For lying. For stealing from our son. For putting this family at risk with that criminal. Dad flinched. The compass auction is in 3 days, I said carefully. If it sells for what they think, there'll be enough to pay Cody and still have money left. That's not your responsibility, Mom said firmly. I know. But Cody texted me. He threatened to collect soon. That makes it my problem too. Dad finally spoke, his voice rough. Marcus, you don't have to do this. I'll figure something out somehow. Like you figured out the car? The words came out harsher than I meant, but I didn't take them back. Mom stood up. I'm going to my sister's house for a few days. I need space to think. She looked at Dad with an expression I'd never seen before. Don't call me. After she left, the house felt empty. Dad went to his office and closed the door. I could hear him on the phone, his voice rising and falling, probably talking to Cody. I opened my laptop and checked the auction page. The compass was now listed as one of the featured items. The description included my story. My photo. Everything. There was a new message from Christine. We've received significant pre-auction interest. Multiple serious bidders have registered. I wouldn't be surprised if this exceeds our estimate considerably. Are you prepared for that? Was I? This had started as revenge. A way to hurt Dad the way he'd hurt me. But now it was also the only way to save our family from Cody Matthews. The auction was Saturday. 3 days away. 3 days to decide what kind of person I wanted to be. Friday night, Dominic showed up with Sarah. They had an envelope. This is everything we have, Dominic said, handing it to me. Inside were $3,500 bills. Dominic, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. This is partly my fault too. Dad used your money for my honeymoon. The least I can do is help fix the situation. He paused. We sold Sarah's car and some of our wedding gifts to get this. Sarah spoke for the first time. We also talked to a lawyer about Cody Matthews. What he's doing, the interest rates, the threats, it's all illegal. We can report him to the police. But if we do that, won't he come after Dad harder before the cops can stop him? I asked. That's the risk, Sarah admitted. But it's an option if the auction doesn't go well. We sat there together, trying to fix a problem our father had created. It felt wrong. We were supposed to be the kids. This wasn't our mess to clean up. But here we were anyway. Tomorrow's the auction, I said. Let's see what happens. If the compass sells for enough, we pay Cody and we're done. If it doesn't, I couldn't finish the sentence. After they left, I tried to sleep but couldn't. At midnight, another text came from the unknown number. We're coming by to collect soon. Have the money ready. No name. But I knew it was Cody. My hands went cold. I forwarded the message to Dominic and Jenny. Then I did something I'd been avoiding. I called the police non-emergency line. I want to report threatening messages, I told the officer who answered. I explained everything. The loan. The threats. The text. The officer listened patiently. We can't do much about civil debt collection, he said. But if he's threatening violence, that's different. Keep documentation of everything. If he shows up at your house, call 911 immediately. After I hung up, I sat in the dark feeling scared for the first time through this whole mess. Cody Matthews wasn't just an abstract problem anymore. He was real. And he was coming. Saturday morning arrived cold and bright. Auction day. I put on my best clothes. Clean jeans and a button-up shirt Jenny had helped me pick out. Jenny picked me up at 9. Her old Camry smelled like the vanilla air freshener she always used. Ready? She asked. No. But let's go anyway. The drive to Portland took 3 hours. Jenny talked the whole way about everything except the auction. Her new job. Her cat's weird habit of stealing socks. A movie she'd watched last week. It helped a little. My stomach stayed in knots anyway. Marlowe Auction House was fancier than I'd imagined. Marble floors that clicked under our shoes. Crystal chandeliers hanging from high ceilings. People in expensive suits drinking champagne even though it wasn't even noon yet. Christine met us in the lobby. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than my car had. Marcus, I'm so glad you made it. Come with me. She led us through hallways lined with paintings. Everything looked old and valuable and fragile. The auction room was huge. Rows of chairs facing a podium with a wooden gavel. Big screens on the walls showing items up for bid. Everything felt official and intimidating. The Maritime Collection starts at 1 o'clock, Christine explained. Your compass is lot 47, so probably around 2:30. You'll sit right here. She pointed to seats in the 3rd row. Close enough to see everything but not so close you'll feel too exposed. How many people usually come? I asked. For a maritime auction? Maybe 100 in person. Plus online bidders from around the world. Christine smiled. Your piece has generated exceptional interest. We've had inquiries from 12 countries. My mouth went dry. 12 countries. What if it doesn't sell? The question came out quiet. Christine's face got serious. Marcus, based on the pre-auction interest, I'm confident it will sell. The question is how high the bidding will go. But I need to prepare you for something. What? Sometimes family members show up to auctions like this. Sometimes they try to bid. Sometimes they cause scenes. She looked at me carefully. Has your father said anything about coming? My stomach dropped. I hadn't even thought about that. No. He doesn't know exactly when the auction is. But be prepared just in case. We had 3 hours to kill before the auction started. Jenny and I walked around downtown Portland. Got coffee. Sat in a park watching pigeons fight over breadcrumbs. You okay? Jenny asked. I don't know. I thought I'd feel powerful right now. Like I was taking control. I stared at my coffee. Instead I just feel scared. Scared of what? That I'm doing the wrong thing. That I'm hurting Dad when maybe I should be helping him. That I'm just as bad as he is. Jenny was quiet for a minute. Then she said, Marcus, your dad stole from you. Not borrowed. Not made a mistake. Stole. He took something that was yours and used it for himself and Dominic without asking. That's not okay. I know, but... And when you confronted him, he didn't apologize. He got angry. He threatened to sue you. He tried to make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. Jenny grabbed my hand. You're not doing anything wrong. You're setting boundaries. That's healthy. What if the compass sells for enough to pay Cody and I just keep all the money? What if I let Dad lose the boat? That's your choice to make. Nobody else's. We walked back to the auction house at 1 o'clock. The room was filling up fast. People in expensive clothes carrying catalogs. Some had laptops. Some had phones out ready to bid online. I sat in my assigned seat and watched them come in. Collectors. Dealers. People who bought and sold history for a living. At 1:30, the auctioneer stepped up to the podium. He was older, maybe 60, with a sharp suit and a voice that carried. Welcome to Marlowe's September Maritime Collection. We have 75 exceptional lots today. Let's begin with Lot 1. The first items went fast. A ship's bell from 1875 sold for $8,000. A sextant from a famous explorer's voyage went for $22,000. Every time the gavel came down, I jumped a little. Lot 30. Lot 35. Lot 40. My heart pounded harder with each number. At 2:15, during Lot 43, I saw movement at the back of the room. Someone coming in late. The person's face was hidden behind other standing guests. Then the crowd shifted. He stood at the back of the room, pale and sweating. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. Older. Our eyes met across the space. He didn't wave. Didn't smile. Just stood there looking at me like he was drowning and I was the only life raft. Jenny grabbed my hand. Don't look at him. Look at me. Breathe. He came, I whispered. I know. It doesn't change anything. The compass is yours. This is your decision. Lot 44 sold. Then 45. Then 46. Next we have Lot 47, the auctioneer said. A magnificent brass maritime compass, circa 1890, with exceptional provenance. The screens showed photos of the compass. Then photos of Grandpa wearing it. Then the photo of me holding it. This piece comes with a compelling human story, the auctioneer continued. He read the catalog description word for word. About Dad selling my car. About standing up for myself. About courage. The room went completely quiet. Everyone was listening. I looked at Dad. His face had gone from pale to gray. He was hearing the story read out loud in front of 100 strangers. Hearing what he'd done broadcast to the world. We'll start the bidding at $10,000, the auctioneer said. A paddle went up immediately. Number 47. 10,000. Do I hear 12? Another paddle. Number 23. 12,000. 15. The bidding climbed fast. 15 became 18. 18 became 22. The room leaned forward in their seats. At 30,000, the bidding slowed. Only 3 people were still in. 30,000. Do I hear 35? Paddle 47 went up again. 35,000. 40. The pause. Then paddle 23 raised. 40,000. The room held its breath. $40,000, the auctioneer repeated. Do I hear 45? Paddle 47 hesitated, then dropped. They were out. 40,000 going once. I looked at the screens showing my compass. Grandpa's compass. Worth more than I'd ever imagined. 40,000 going twice. A new paddle shot up from the back of the room. Not one of the regular bidders. Someone standing. The auctioneer paused, surprised. We have a new bidder at 45,000. Do I hear 50? I turned to see who it was. Dominic. My brother stood at the back of the room, his hand raised high, his face wet with tears. Sarah stood next to him, her hand on his shoulder. The room erupted in whispers. People checking their catalogs. Trying to understand what was happening. Paddle 23 raised again. 50,000. Dominic didn't hesitate. 55. His voice carried across the room. 55,000, the auctioneer said, his voice showing excitement now. Do I hear 60? Paddle 23 raised one more time. 60,000. The number hung in the air like smoke. $60,000. 7.5 times what my car was worth. Dominic looked at me across the room. Our eyes met. He mouthed something I couldn't quite read. Then he raised his paddle again. $65,000. Paddle 23 shook their head. They were done. $65,000 going once, the auctioneer said, scanning the room for other bidders. $65,000 going twice. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed off the walls. Sold for $65,000 to Paddle 156. The room exploded in applause. People turned to look at Dominic. At me. At Dad standing frozen at the back. I sat there shaking. Not understanding. Dominic had just bought the compass. My brother who had no money. My brother whose honeymoon I'd paid for. He just spent $65,000 on Grandpa's compass. But after the auction ended, Dominic found me in the hallway outside. People were still congratulating him. Shaking his hand. Asking questions. He pulled me aside to a quiet corner. I need to explain, he said. You just spent $65,000. My voice came out strange. Money you don't have. I know. I took out a loan this morning. Against our house. Sarah's house technically, but we own it together. He wiped his eyes. I called her parents. Explained everything. They co-signed. Dominic, why? You're going to be in debt for years. Because I needed to fix what Dad broke. What I helped break by being blind to it all. Dominic's voice cracked. I didn't buy the compass for Dad, Marcus. I bought it for you. For me. I bought it back so we could decide together what happens to it. So Dad doesn't get to control this anymore. So you have the power. Dominic grabbed my shoulders. But there's one thing I want to do first. One thing that might actually teach Dad what he needs to learn. What? Give it back to him. But not here. Not now. Somewhere that matters. Somewhere he'll have to face what he did. Dominic's eyes were intense. The old oak tree where Dad proposed to Mom. That's where family promises are supposed to mean something. That's where we make him understand. I looked past Dominic to where Dad still stood. He was watching us. Probably trying to figure out what was happening. Probably hoping Dominic bought it for him. When? I asked. Tomorrow. Sunday morning. I'll text him to meet us there at 10. Dominic paused. But Marcus, you get the final say on what happens to the compass after that. Not me. Not Dad. You. I thought about it. The oak tree. The place where Dad had promised to love and honor Mom. The place where he'd started building lies. Okay, I said. Tomorrow. That night I barely slept. The auction money would transfer to my account in 3 business days. $65,000. Minus Marlowe's commission, I'd still get around $55,000. Enough to buy a car. Pay for college. Start over. But the money wasn't mine. Not yet. Dominic had paid for it. Dominic, who was now in debt because of me. Because of Dad. Because of everything that had gone wrong. Sunday morning came too fast. Jenny drove me to the oak tree at 9:30. It was in a park on the edge of town. The tree was massive, probably 200 years old, with branches that spread like arms. Dad was already there when we arrived. He looked like he hadn't slept either. His eyes were red and puffy. Dominic and Sarah pulled up a few minutes later. Dominic was carrying a small velvet box. We stood in a circle under the tree. No one spoke at first. Finally, Dominic opened the box. Inside was the compass, polished and gleaming in the morning sun. Dad, Dominic said, his voice shaking, this is where you proposed to Mom 30 years ago. This is where you promised to honor her. To build a family based on trust and love. Dad's face crumpled. Dominic, please. You broke those promises. You stole from Marcus to cover up your mistakes. You lied to me about where the honeymoon money came from. You put our whole family at risk with Cody Matthews. Dominic's voice got stronger. And you were going to let Marcus's compass, his inheritance from Grandpa, get sold without even trying to make things right. I was going to pay him back, Dad whispered. When? How? Dominic held up the box. I spent $65,000 yesterday. Money I don't have. Money I'll be paying back for 10 years. I did that because you wouldn't. Dad reached for the box with shaking hands. I stepped forward and grabbed it first. No, I said. Dad's hand froze in the air. Marcus, please. That compass is my father's. It's family history. It was family history. Until you decided I didn't matter enough to ask before you stole from me. My voice was steady even though my heart raced. You lost the right to this compass when you sold my car without permission. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make it right. Really? Anything? I looked at him hard. Then answer one question honestly. If Dominic hadn't bought this compass yesterday, what would you have done with the money? Dad opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I needed to pay Cody. You would have kept it. Used it to solve your problems. And you would have told yourself it was for the family. Just like you told yourself selling my car was for the family. I felt tears coming but didn't stop them. You would have taken everything and never apologized. Never admitted you were wrong. That's not true, Dad said, but his voice had no strength. Dominic knelt down next to me. Marcus, there's one thing I want to suggest. Just a suggestion, not a demand. What? Give the compass to Rosa. Mrs. Chun from next door. The woman who took care of Mom when she was sick with pneumonia 2 years ago. The woman who actually shows up for our family when we need help. Dominic looked at Dad. Someone who understands what family really means. I thought about Rosa. How she'd brought us meals when Mom was bedridden. How she'd sat with me when I was worried and scared. How she'd never asked for anything in return. Yes, I said. That's exactly right. Dad's face went white. You can't give away a family heirloom to a stranger. She's not a stranger. She's more family than you've been. I held the box close. And legally this is mine. I can do whatever I want with it. We left Dad standing under the oak tree. Walked away while he called after us. His voice got smaller and smaller until we couldn't hear it anymore. Rosa cried when we showed up at her door with the compass. I can't accept this, she said, wiping her eyes. This is too valuable. Too important. You took care of my mom when she needed help, I said. You didn't ask for money or recognition. You just helped because that's what good people do. This compass should belong to someone who understands that. Rosa held the compass carefully, like it might break. She opened it and watched the needle spin and settle pointing north. Your grandfather was a good man, she said softly. He used to show me this compass when I'd come over for coffee. He said it kept him pointed in the right direction when he felt lost. Will you keep it safe? I asked. With my life. That night, a certified letter arrived at our house. Dad had filed a civil lawsuit trying to reclaim the compass. The papers were cold and official. He claimed emotional distress, loss of family property, violation of family trust. I read through them with Jenny. She was in law school and understood the language better than me. Can he win? I asked. No. You have the will. You have proof of ownership. You have documentation of the sale. He has no legal standing. Jenny set the papers down. But he can drag this out. Make it painful. Let him try. The next day, the judge scheduled a hearing. 2 weeks away. The town started buzzing with gossip. Everyone had opinions about the family drama. 26. The hearing was set for a Thursday morning. The courthouse was small, just one room with wooden benches and an American flag in the corner. I wore the same outfit I'd worn to the auction. Dominic and Sarah sat behind me. Jenny sat on my other side with her law school notes. Dad sat across the aisle with the lawyer he'd hired. The lawyer looked expensive and mean. The judge was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. She'd probably seen 1,000 family disputes just like this one. Let's keep this simple, the judge said. Mr. Harrison, you're claiming your son illegally sold family property. Your son claims it was legally his to sell. Let's see the documentation. Dad's lawyer stood up and made his case. Talked about family tradition. About emotional value. About how children shouldn't be allowed to destroy family legacies out of spite. Then it was my turn. Jenny stood and presented the will. The auction house documentation. The proof that the compass was legally mine. The photos showing 3 generations of ownership leading to me. The judge read everything carefully. Then she looked at Dad. Mr. Harrison, did you sign this will leaving the compass to your son? Yes, but... Did your son have legal ownership of the car you sold? Dad's lawyer jumped in. Your Honor, the car situation is separate from. I asked Mr. Harrison a question. The judge's voice was sharp. Did your son own the car? Yes, Dad admitted quietly. And did you sell it without his permission? Silence. Mr. Harrison, I'm waiting. Yes. The judge leaned back in her chair. So you sold your son's property without permission to solve your own financial problems. And now you're upset that he sold property that was legally his. Do I have that right? Dad didn't answer. The judge looked at the papers again. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Mr. Harrison, why did you sign the will leaving this compass to your son specifically? 27. Dad's lawyer tried to object. Your Honor, that's not relevant to. I'll decide what's relevant. The judge looked at Dad. I'm genuinely curious. This will was written 12 years ago. You specifically named the compass as going to Marcus, not your other son. Why? Dad's face went through about 10 different emotions. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at his lawyer who shrugged. Finally, Dad spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. My father told me to. When he was dying, he said to give the compass to whichever son learned to stand up for himself. To not just accept whatever life handed him. The courtroom went silent. He said Marcus would need it more than Dominic, Dad continued. He said Marcus was too much like me. Too eager to please. Too willing to put everyone else first. Dad looked at me for the first time since the hearing started. He said, give it to Marcus when he learns to be brave. My chest felt tight. The note I'd found in the photo. For when you're brave. That's what it had meant. The judge wrote something down. So your father specifically wanted Marcus to have this compass as a symbol of standing up for himself. And now you're suing him for doing exactly that. Dad's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, with all due respect. Sit down. The judge's voice cut through the room. I've heard enough. She shuffled her papers and looked at both sides. Here's my ruling. The compass legally belongs to Marcus Harrison. The will is clear and properly executed. Mr. Harrison has no legal claim to the property. She paused. However, given the circumstances of the car sale, I'm ordering Mr. Harrison to pay restitution to Marcus in the amount of $8,000, the original value of the vehicle sold without permission. Dad's face went white. Furthermore, the judge continued, the compass will remain with its current holder, Mrs. Rosa Chen, as per Marcus Harrison's wishes. Mr. Harrison is prohibited from contacting Mrs. Chen regarding the compass. If he does, he'll face contempt charges. The gavel came down hard. Case dismissed. 20. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. Small-town reporters, but still. The story had gotten bigger than I'd expected. Marcus, how do you feel about the judge's ruling? Do you plan to reconcile with your father? What will you do with the restitution money? Jenny held me towards her car. Dominic and Sarah followed close behind. We drove to Rosa's house without talking. The weight of everything that had happened pressed down like a physical thing. Rosa was waiting on her porch. She'd been listening to the hearing on a phone app. She saw us. She smiled and held up the compass. Come inside, she said. I made coffee and cookies. We sat in Rosa's small kitchen that smelled like vanilla and cinnamon. The compass sat on the table between us, catching afternoon light through the window. Your grandfather would be proud, Rosa said to me. Not because you sold the compass or won in court. Because you stood up for yourself when it was hard. It still feels bad, I admitted. Like I broke the family. You didn't break anything, Mijo. You revealed what was already broken. Rosa poured coffee into mismatched mugs. Sometimes things have to break before they can heal properly. Dominic spoke up after being quiet for a while. I need to tell you something, Marcus. About the $65,000. My stomach dropped. What about it? I'm not asking you to pay me back. That money was my responsibility. My choice. But I need you to know that Sarah and I talked to a financial counselor. We have a plan to pay off the loan in 5 years, not 10. We're selling our second car. Cutting back. Making it work. Dominic. Let me finish. He grabbed my hand. I'm doing this because it's right. Because I helped create this mess by being blind to Dad's favoritism. By accepting things I shouldn't have accepted. This is my way of standing up too. Sarah nodded. We're a team. We'll figure it out. I felt tears coming again. Thank you. We sat there eating Rosa's cookies. Outside, the sun was setting. The compass on the table kept pointing north, steady and true, just like Grandpa had always said it would. I watched through my open garage as Dad handed the buyer the keys to my car. My Honda Civic. The one I'd saved for 3 years to buy. The one with my parking permit still stuck to the windshield. This is for the family, Dad said, like those 4 words made everything okay. The buyer counted out cash. $50 bills that Dad folded and shoved into his jacket pocket. He didn't look at me once. Not when the man asked about the mileage. Not when they shook hands. Not when my car, backed out of our driveway. Dad, what are you doing? I finally screamed. He turned and smiled. Not a sorry smile. A smile like he'd just solved a big problem. Like he was proud of himself. Dominic needs this more than you do, he said. You can take the bus. Dominic, my younger brother. The one who could never do anything wrong. Dad walked past me into the house, whistling a tune I recognized from his favorite old movie. The buyer drove away in my car, and I just stood there. My legs wouldn't move. My brain couldn't understand what had just happened. Later that afternoon, I saw something fall from Dad's jacket when he hung it up. A glossy wedding photo. Dominic and his new wife Sarah on a beach, both grinning like they'd won the lottery. Behind the photo was a brochure with big blue letters, Honeymoon packages. My stomach dropped. He sold my car to pay for Dominic's honeymoon. I picked up the brochure after Dad left the room. Turks and Caicos. 7-day all-inclusive resort. Sunset cruises and couples massages. My hands started shaking. That night, sleep didn't come. I kept seeing Dad's face. That smile. Like stealing from me was just another Tuesday. At 2 in the morning, I gave up and went downstairs. Dad's tablet was charging on the kitchen counter. He never put a password on it. Said he had nothing to hide. I opened his email app. It took 10 minutes of scrolling before I found it. A receipt from Paradise Getaways Travel. The date was 3 days ago. The amount made my chest tight. $7,500. $7,500. My car was worth maybe $8,000. He'd sold everything I owned and given it to Dominic. I took a screenshot. My hands shook so badly I had to try 3 times before I got it right. There was another email below the receipt. From Dominic, thanks, Dad. Sarah is so excited. You're the best father ever. Not will pay you back. Not, this is too much. Just thanks and a smiley face. I wanted to scream. Wanted to throw the tablet against the wall and watch it shatter. But I just stood there in the dark kitchen, staring at proof that my father had stolen from me. I texted Dominic. One simple question. Did you know Dad sold my car to pay for your honeymoon? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, a photo came through. Dominic on a beach chair, sunscreen on his nose, a bright blue drink in his hand. The caption said, "Living the dream, bro." No answer to my question. No apology. Just a picture of him enjoying the vacation I'd paid for. At breakfast the next morning, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Why did you let him do this? I asked Mom. She stood at the stove making scrambled eggs. Her back was to me. Dad had already left for work. Dominic was probably still sleeping off his beach vacation. Let who do what? Mom's voice was quiet. Too quiet. Dad sold my car. To pay for Dominic's honeymoon. My car, Mom. The spatula stopped moving. Just for a second. Then she kept stirring the eggs in slow circles. It's their money, she finally said. Their money? My voice cracked. That was MY car. I paid for it with MY money from MY job. Your father makes the financial decisions in this house. Mom's voice was flat. Like she'd said this same sentence 100 times before. I pushed my chair back. The legs made a horrible scraping sound against the floor. That money was mine. Watch your tone, Mom said, still not looking at me. I stood there feeling small. Feeling invisible. Like nothing I said would ever matter because I wasn't the favorite son. From the living room, a quiet voice asked, "Did you ever read Dad's will?" I turned around fast. My cousin Jenny was sitting on the couch. She'd stayed overnight after a family dinner. I'd forgotten she was even here. "What?" I said. But Jenny just looked at me with this strange expression. Then she stood up and walked outside without saying another word. The question hung in the air like smoke. Dad's will. Why would that matter now? After Mom left for her book club, I went straight to Dad's office. The room smelled like old coffee and leather. Everything was organized and neat. Dad liked order. The safe was behind a painting of a sailboat. I knew the combination because Dad had made me memorize it years ago. In case of emergency, he'd said. The numbers were Mom's birthday, August 14th, 71. I turned the dial carefully. Left, right, left again. The safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of papers. Insurance documents in blue folders. The house deed in a plastic sleeve. Birth certificates held together with a paperclip. And at the very bottom, a thick envelope with "Last Will and Testament" written across the front. My hands felt cold as I pulled it out. I sat on the floor and started reading. Most of it was boring legal words that didn't make much sense. The house went to Mom. His retirement money got split between Dominic and me. His tools went to Dominic because Dominic showed interest in working with his hands. I almost stopped reading. But then I saw my name in a different paragraph. To my son Marcus, I leave one item of significant personal value, the golden compass that belonged to my father and his father before him. The golden compass. I didn't remember ever seeing a golden compass. Nothing like that in our house. Nothing Dad had ever shown me. But someone had written in the margin. Pencil marks, shaky handwriting, kept in attic, under the chest. The handwriting looked old. Faded. Maybe Grandpa's writing from before he died 5 years ago. I read the line again. Significant personal value. That meant it was important. That meant Dad had wanted me to have it specifically. I took a photo of the page with my phone and put the will back in the safe.